today we're going to make a chocolate cake. I've actually had a chocolate cake recipe on the blog for a while, but it didn't have a video with it, and a few people have requested that I do a video. So I've actually updated the recipe a little bit, changed it slightly, and we're going to do a video. It's still a very easy chocolate cake recipe. Basically it's an all-in-one sponge and then some chocolate fudgy buttercream. So first of all, let's go through the ingredients that we need. Obviously the full recipe will be on the blog at www.howtomakecakes.co.uk. So what we need is 200 grams of self-raising flour. We've got 40 grams of cocoa, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and 60 grams of dark chocolate. Then the sugar I'm using is a light muscovado sugar, 200 grams. You can get light and dark muscovado. I think the light is a slightly lighter taste, which is better. Unsalted butter at room temperature, 200 grams, and 4 eggs. And then we just also have 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla essence. So as I said, it's an all-in-one sponge, so we're going to put everything together, but the first thing we need to do is melt the chocolate. So we'll do that over some simmering water in a bowl. So just break the chocolate up into smaller pieces, and I should have some water just boiling over here. So just turn the water down so it's just nicely simmering. Put the bowl on top and we'll just leave that to melt. While the chocolate is melting, we'll just add everything else. So if we put the flour, the cocoa and the baking powder through the sieve. So we'll add that first. Just with the cocoa you tend to get lots of lumps. I just sort of force the rest of that through the sieve. Then add in the sugar. With the butter, I'll just chop this up into smaller pieces while I add it, and then we'll add. Once the chocolate's melted, just carefully take that off the heat and we'll add that into the mixture also. So I'll just use a spatula, put all of the yummy chocolate in. This helps to give it less of a cocoa and more of a real chocolate taste. So once that's all added in, we'll just whisk it all together. Also don't forget to add the vanilla essence like I nearly did. So this is a teaspoon measurement, we want 1.5 of these, so 1.5. And then I'm going to use just an electric whisk. If you've got a Kenwood chef or a food processor you can use that, but this is equally just as good. So just start it off slowly and whisk it all together. So once that's all mixed together, you'll see it's gone a bit lighter in colour. Now sometimes the mixture can be a bit thick, and actually I'm just going to add a drop of milk to this because just depending on the size of the eggs, etc., sometimes it's a bit thick. So I'm just going to add a little drop of milk, but it just depends how thick the consistency is, and then just whisk that up. Once it's all mixed together, we just need to put them into 2 sandwich tins. These are 8-inch tins. I've just lightly greased the bottom, put some greaseproof paper on, and I just like to put a little bit, this is called cake release, but just, you know, butter or melted butter or anything is fine, just to grease it and help stop it sticking. So we just do that and then divide it evenly between the 2 tins. So just divide them between the tins and then sort of smooth them out a bit without playing with the mixture too much. Try and make sure there's roughly half in each of it. And then we're going to bake them in the oven at 190 degrees, and it's going to take about 30 minutes to cook. So that's just been 25 minutes. I'm just going to check them now, and I think looking at them they're probably cooked. So just pull the tray out a bit and they should just be springy to the touch, which they are. And I've just got a cake tester here which you just put in the middle, and if it comes out clean, which that has, then they're cooked. So we'll take them out and just leave them to cool for 5 minutes before turning them out. So once they've cooled for about 5 minutes, that you can touch these but they're still warm, just run a knife around the edge of the sponge just to loosen it, and then hopefully it will just come out nice and easily. So the way I do it is loosen it, and then I just put the rack over it like that and flick it over. Hopefully it will come out. As that one has perfectly. So once we've let the cakes cool for a while, we then need to make the buttercream filling, which we're going to put as a filling and on the top. So for this, I use chocolate rather than using cocoa powder because I think it makes a more fudgy, creamy buttercream. So we've got 200 grams of dark chocolate, 200 grams of icing sugar, and 200 grams of unsalted butter. What we're going to do is just put the chocolate in a bowl and melt that, and then we'll mix the other two together and then put it all together. So whilst you put this again over a pan of simmering water, we'll then mix the other two. So while the chocolate's melting, first we'll just put the butter in a bowl, and I'm going to actually whisk that with a whisk first just to soften it before adding the icing sugar. So just on a fairly low speed, just start to beat this together. So once you've softened the butter a bit, then put the icing sugar in. I've already sifted the icing sugar, but if you haven't, then sift it into the bowl and just put all that in. And again, you have to start quite slowly with this, otherwise it will go everywhere. But just mix this in, and then we'll add the chocolate shortly. So whisk the two together, and slowly they'll start to all come together into buttercream, and suddenly it'll all come together just like it is now. So roughly mix that together, and then we'll just add the melted. So once your chocolate's all melted, take that out of the pan, and then we'll go and add this into the mixture. So just pour it all in, and it'll make a nice fudgy chocolate buttercream. So then just using your whisk again, we'll just mix this all together. Twist it up, it will go a nice lighter brown colour. I'm just going to use a spatula now just to get all these bits around the edge of the bowl, and just make sure it's all nicely mixed together and you've got no lumps. Nice smooth buttercream, and then we're ready to put this in the cake. To fill the cake, I've actually got one of these stands, which makes it a bit easier, but what you just want to make sure is that if your cake's risen a bit, the top layer you just want to be fairly flat. This sponge actually is fairly flat on both sides, so I'm actually going to use that and that for the middle and that for the top. So the first thing we need to do is just fill the middle of the cake. So it's best to use a palette knife for this, where you can just dollop some on, and then we can spread it over the cake, a nice thick layer of this. So I like to put a nice thick layer on there right to the edge, so that when you put the top on you can see the buttercream. So then carefully just put your top layer on, and then again do the same thing, put some on the top, and just being a little bit more careful so you don't squidge all of the middle buttercream out, just cover the top as well. So, and we cover the top of the cake like that. Some people may want to put this all around the side, but I just think you'd have too much buttercream if you do it like that. So there we have our easy to make chocolate sponge with a fudgy chocolate buttercream. Don't forget, the full recipe is on my blog at www.howtomakecakes.co.uk.